WWE's annual Elimination Chamber pay-per-view is now done and dusted, together with this week's edition of Raw and Smackdown. WWE shockingly made the decision to bring up 4 NXT superstars, and they've all performed incredibly well. Did it make sense to have them? Maybe. Are we glad they are on Raw? Yes. Did the Lafayette crowd deserve them? Hell no. SmackDown was just as solid, with the NXT call-ups appearing and making another strong statement by winning their matches, as well as Kofi Kingston vs Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship on the line being confirmed for FASTLANE. Those things were obvious, but what did WWE secretly tell us on these 3 shows? Number 1. Kofi Kingston got his revenge on Randy Orton. Kofi Kingston's push to the main event is long overdue, but many fans might not know that it was supposed to happen many years before the New Day even existed. In 2010, Kingston was in line for a massive push and was ready to step into the title scene. Things were looking good for him as he managed to get a big win over Randy Orton and was the sole survivor for his team at the 2009 Survivor Series pay-per-view. However, that push came to a screaming halt after just one mistake wrestling Orton. The finish of the match was to have Kofi Kingston stay down and get punted by Randy Orton, but Kofi kept getting up even after being pushed down from Orton. The Apex Predator would snap, giving him an RKO and audibly yelling "stupid, stupid" before pinning him. As a result of this one mistake, Orton complained to Vince, which consequently led to him cancelling any push. Now, Kofi has beaten Orton before in 2014 on Raw, but pinning the Viper in the Elimination Chamber just felt so satisfying. And on this week's edition of SmackDown Live, Kofi even made a reference to Orton's tantrum by yelling out "stupid, stupid" after laying him out. After almost 10 long years, Kofi is now finally in the spot he was supposed to be before Randy Orton meddled. So kudos to Kofi. Number 2. Ronda Rousey as Sonya Blade. Fans at the pay-per-view were surprised when Ronda didn't sport her typical leather jacket, face paint and kilt, which is a tribute to the late great Rowdy Roddy Piper, as instead she wrestled in a different attire, complete with a hat. The attire she was sporting was actually a nod to the Sonya Blade character from the Mortal Kombat series, as Ronda Rousey was her voice actress in the new 11th installment of the game. This isn't the first time we've seen some cosplay in wrestling this year, as Zelina Vega also gave a tribute to Vega from the Street Fighter series wearing his signature mask and spiked claws. It's possible we could see a match between Rousey and Glacier at WrestleMania 35. Just kidding. Number 3. A number of records were made. Records can be set at every Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, whether it be the longest time spent held by Roman Reigns, or Chris Jericho with the most eliminations. However, some other records you might not know were set during this pay-per-view. We saw Shane and The Miz set the record for the shortest WWE Smackdown Tag Team Championship reign, as they only managed to hold the belts for 21 days. The Usos managed to pick up the win, setting a different record for the most ever reigns with 4. Aside from title reigns, Daniel Bryan now joins the exclusive list of men to win a chamber match more than once. He joins Triple H, who has won 4 matches, John Cena, who has won 3, and ties with Edge with 2 wins. Number 4. This is the first Elimination Chamber pay-per-view to have no members of the Shield wrestle in 6 years. You might not have noticed, but at least one member of the Shield has wrestled on an Elimination Chamber pay-per-view since 2013. Their debut Chamber pay-per-view saw all 3-man tag to defeat Cena, Ryback and Sheamus. They then tagged again, but were defeated by the Wyatt family in 2014. Months after their breakup and Seth Rollins turning heel, both he and Dean Ambrose would fight in the main event a year later for the championship in 2015. Fast forward to 2016, where only Dean Ambrose wrestled at the pay-per-view, taking part in the Elimination Chamber match, and last year saw the opposite, where Ambrose was out of action due to injury and both Reigns and Rollins were in the main event. This year, however, for the first time in 6 years, no Shield member wrestled at an Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, with Reigns out indefinitely battling leukemia, Rollins suffering an injury, and Ambrose not being used. Number 5. Braun, a Paul Heyman guy? We were gonna get a third one-on-one encounter between the monster among men and the beast incarnate at this year's Royal Rumble until WWE pulled the plug on it, replacing Braun with Finn Balor instead for a more exciting contest. We probably won't see Brock until a few weeks before WrestleMania, where he is set to face the Royal Rumble winner Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship. But we did see his advocate Paul Heyman on Raw, as he had a brief altercation with Strowman after his match with Baron Corbin. Now, due to their history and the monster that Strowman is, he could have destroyed Heyman, but he chose not to. Maybe we're reading too much into it, but it's strange that the two had the encounter. WWE knew full well Heyman couldn't take a bump, and Braun not attacking him just made him look weak. There has to be something more to this, perhaps the two allying with each other. Number 6. A little heat on NXT call-ups. Raw unexpectedly had 4 call-ups to the main roster this week, as Aleister Black managed to defeat Elias on Raw and Andrade on SmackDown. Tommaso Ciampa teamed with Johnny Gargano to take on the Revival and the Bar, getting the win on both teams. And last but not least, Ricochet teaming with Finn Balor, defeating Lio Rush and Lashley. It's been reported that the call-ups were a spur-of-the-moment kind of thing, as WWE had no real plans for them. Main roster talent were even caught off guard by their debuts backstage, leading to a little bit of heat. Mike Johnson of PW Insider reported, 4 NXT stars were brought up. They were not at the Elimination Chamber. I can tell you from speaking to a number of people who work on the main roster, no one seemed to have any knowledge or understanding that they were coming to work the show. When they showed up, there was definitely some side eye at these guys going, okay, why are they all here? Why are they all working Raw? There were definitely some talents who have been brought up within the last couple of months who really have kind of just floated around, not due to their issues, but just due to how they were treated on creative. They were kind of like, oh, are they coming for my spot? What's going on here? For the first time in a while, not that there was anger or resentment against the quartet that showed up last night, but we definitely heard some feedback from some WWE talents who were paying closer attention to their own spot and what these talents coming up could mean for their spot. I don't mean people who just came up to the roster from NXT, I'm talking about existing mid-card talent who haven't got a lot or are just starting to get a little bit of a push again. There was definitely some whispering among each other like, hey, what's going on here? Some talent have waited months to even be featured on weekly programming, so it's no wonder some eyebrows have been raised backstage. Number 7. Dean Ambrose's change of character. Dean Ambrose seems to be set on leaving WWE, and it seems to be clear he doesn't give a damn about what he does with his character anymore. He's reportedly going off script and slowly transitioning into a babyface again. He slapped Drew McIntyre backstage on the face, ditched the silly attire, and his theme music has now changed as there's no more sirens wailing in the background. Ambrose also seems to have suffered from amnesia, as his hate for Rollins seems to have disappeared, and seems to have forgotten that he's been feuding with him for the past few months. Hopefully Ambrose will have some part in helping Rollins win the championship at WrestleMania. Number 8. Tamina and Nia Jax vs Banks and Bayley at FASTLANE. The Boss and Hug connection became the very first ever WWE Women's Champions at the Elimination Chamber, overcoming 5 other teams, one of them being the dominant duo of Tamina and Nia Jax, who interrupted the pair on Raw. Nothing has been announced yet, but expect the pair to be first in line at a chance to win the belts at FASTLANE. Number 9. Charlotte Flair suffered some serious bruises. Despite being suspended, the Irish lass kicker Becky Lynch hobbled her way to the ring from the crowd, rolling right past security who could have apprehended her. She made it into the ring and started going to town on both Flair and Rousey, demolishing them with her crutches. Rousey came off visibly hurt, legitimately suffering a cut on the side of her head. Charlotte didn't seem too hurt until she revealed on social media some painful bruises. She seemed okay enough to wrestle, as she faced Asuka in a dark match on this week's SmackDown Live. And number 10. Lacey Evans vs Asuka at WrestleMania. Fans have been a little perplexed as to why the lady of WWE has been making some random appearances during shows. She walked out and back during the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, appeared during the promo with Heavy Machinery, and during Mandy Rose's match against Asuka. While it might not be obvious, there is talk of Evans getting a massive push and facing Asuka at Mania. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer mentioned, "As far as Asuka goes, I mentioned the thing with Lacey Evans last night. There actually was talk of Asuka and Lacey Evans being the WrestleMania match, and it was definitely on the books at one point. Mandy Rose got a huge win over Asuka, but it could just be simple rubber booking, with Asuka getting a win over her in a rematch at FASTLANE. But what did you guys think of Raw and Smackdown this week? Let us know in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.